As we continue our Advent theme, Time to Wake Up, we acknowledge that sometimes the world seems like a dark place. As we reflect just on the last Advent theme from last week and this week, we know that in the world, sometimes so-called peace comes at the end of a sword or a gun. We know that hope is often thought about, hope for us at the expense of them. Looking forward, we often think that joy is found in more stuff rather than life in God, or that love is to be held rather than to be released. In all this darkness, we need some light. We also reflect that the narratives of Jesus' birth were not all light. They reflected dark times indeed. Indentured servitude, coerced religion, violence, and economic injustice were all realities of the day. And we remember that Advent season, the season before Jesus' birth, is not a warm-up to get in the Christmas spirit in the terms of putting a smile on our faces and singing a happy song. Advent is a time when we can acknowledge that darkness is indeed part of life, but that God is always reaching out, that God is always breaking in and offering light, inviting us to see the light, inviting us to wake up. Advent is our annual alarm clock to wake up to what God is doing in the world, a time to seek the true spirit of Christmas. And this year, we're honing in on these 4 Advent themes of peace, hope, joy, and love. Today is hope. The more I thought about hope in preparation for today, the more I realized that we tend to use hope in 2 distinct ways. The first is sort of hope as wishes. I hope it doesn't rain today. I hope that package arrives tomorrow. I hope the teacher doesn't dock me too many points on this assignment that I put together at the last moment. I hope my fantasy football team wins today, Will Hershey. Will and I are squaring off head to head. I hope I don't eat or drink as much this year as I did last year. I hope I get a new sweater for Christmas. On and on go our hopes as wishes. These are short-term hopes. These are shallow hopes. These are hopes as wishes. And I thought about it, and kind of it helped me visualize it or think about it to show how short-term these sorts of wishes are, especially around Christmas time. Do you ever think about how the things we wish for or hope for that might be under the tree are things that are very fleeting? None of us really, let me put it this way. How many of us are hoping for a new sun umbrella or patio furniture this time of year? We're not, because we're not thinking about that. This exemplifies how these hopes tend to come and go. More wishes than anything substantial. But there is another kind of hope that is deep and long-term. It's even faithful. I'm having a hard time remembering all my stuff over here today. I forgot my clicker today. Oh, good. I'm not the only one who lives with my phone on either. It was well-timed. There's a deeper sense of hope, and the dictionary begins to get at it a little bit when it says this. Hope is an optimistic state of mind that is based on an expectation of positive outcomes with respect to events and circumstances in one's life or in the world at large. This, I think, begins to deepen what another version of hope really is, something more than wishes. It doesn't quite get us all the way to biblical hope or Advent hope, but it starts to pave the way. When we think about biblical hope, when we think about Advent hope, we think about hope found in God. This is the hope that Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of when he talked about the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. This is the hope that the Israelites had for the coming of the Messiah. This is the hope that the writers of the New Testament had and have for the second coming of Jesus. This is the hope that believes in the vision of a grand reordering of creation in which all will have enough and none will have too much. This is the hope of the writer of Isaiah in today's scripture. It's from chapter 11. A shoot shall come out from the stump of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear or the awe of the Lord. His delight shall be in the awe of the Lord. He shall not judge by what his eyes see or decide by what his ears hear, but with righteousness he shall judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt around his waist, and the faithfulness the belt around his loins. The wolf shall live with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the kid, the calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like an ox. The nursing child shall play over the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his or her hand on the adder's den. They will not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. This is the biblical hope that believes that even though the tree has been hacked down, it still contains life, and it can and will grow again. This is the hope that people will turn to God. This is the hope that peace will reign to the extent that God will make things right, that justice will be served by God in God's time. This is the hope that people will really understand and live peaceably with one another. This is the hope that peace will be so profound that even the lion will lay with the lamb in harmony, that children will play with rattlesnakes. A word of caution, let's not get tangled in biblical literalism here. We note that the writer of Isaiah is speaking in metaphor, and also that he's not predicting the future so much as he's expressing the hope, the deep, abiding hope, that with God, it will all be okay, one way or the other. This is biblical hope. This is the hope that our Nigerian brothers and sisters display when they believe that God will do a new thing, even after kidnappings, murders, rapes, church burnings, and displacement. This is the hope that propels a mother to leave her children to travel to another country to seek work so that money can be sent to her children to go to school so that they can have a brighter future. This is the hope that encourages a congregation like this one to keep reaching out in peace and service and openness to all. This is the hope that cancer patients have, many of whom sit in this very room and are part of this community, that in the end, it will be okay. This is the hope that a bedridden 90-something-year-old woman has for her drug-addled great-grandson. Not just wishes, but living in expectation that God is moving, that even in the darkness there is light. Now, I'm not going to lie, practicing this kind of hope is challenging. And rather than go to this kind of hope, we often settle for our own devices. We choose distraction. Now, this is the part of the sermon where I give you the gratuitous statistics, say that 3 times fast, the stats on the distraction of handheld devices. Now, we know that driving and using your cell phone is a serious no-no. It causes 1.6 million crashes a year in the United States, 390,000 injuries, and thousands of deaths from texting and driving. 1 of 4 accidents is caused by texting and driving. But it's not just behind the wheel that we need to be careful. Texting and walking injuries are also up. Watch where you walk. We see this here as the bar graph goes from left to right and gets higher and higher. And this was just from 2000 up to 2010. The numbers continue to go up. And if that weren't enough, we know that the distraction of our devices, our handheld devices, can harm us physically. Studies are also showing that parents who are in their phones, who are looking at their phones more than their children, actually delay the communication development in their kids. Not enough eye-to-eye contact. Not enough interaction. And if we're past that child-rearing age maybe, and we think that it doesn't matter, we know that it also has an impact on our relationships, no matter the age of those we're around. But here's the thing. If you're now on your high horse thinking, well, I don't really use my phone all that much, I don't even have a smartphone. Well, there are other devices that we use as well. They may not be electronic. Other devices we use to distract ourselves from living life that is really life. Other devices we use to turn our heads away from embracing that deep biblical hope. I think about devices that we use like habitual avoidance. We don't think about those problems in our lives or in our families that we know are stunting our growth. Or maybe even the sunshine optimism. That's another device. Everything is just peachy keen. That's not the biblical hope we're talking about. That's not the hope that the sunshine hope helps us ignore reality. Deep biblical hope does not ignore reality. Those are just two. I'm sure you can think of other devices in your life that you use to keep yourself from risking that vulnerability of really getting into that deep biblical hope. What are they for you? What is it that keeps you from understanding that the moral arc of the universe does bend towards justice, that in the end everything will be okay, but that even now it might be a little dark? Like I said earlier, I wondered what would happen if I asked a question like this using maybe one of these very devices that often distracts us, Facebook. And so I put this out on Facebook earlier this week, on Tuesday. I said, what makes you hopeful? I'm genuinely curious what you, my Facebook community, thinks. What gets you up in the morning? What draws you forward year to year? What sparks your engine? Hope is what? What do you think people wrote? To be honest, I wasn't sure what people would write. Would they say that hope is the perfect Christmas gift? That's what they were really hoping for? Would they say it's that their favorite team was going to win this weekend? Would they say it's that Aunt Sally was going to bring them those peanut butter blossoms just like last year? Not so much those things. Here's what they really said. And I kind of blurred things out. I didn't ask anybody for permission to post this and get it out online, so I blurred stuff out. You might know, though, some of you in this room actually wrote these responses. Here's what people said. Hope is children. Hope is anticipating how my children's lives will turn out, seeing their dreams come true, seeing how their dreams change over time. Visiting the elderly, and lately, I've added golf to the list. I like that one. Hope is living with love and kindness in my heart. Possibility, a new day, the universal desire to remember our Father. Each day holds promise. My faith, gratitude in learning something new. This picture is so beautiful. That's from nowhere. A small town in Arkansas. I wonder what that one's all about. Hope is being able to be in relationship with other people, learning new things each and every day about them. Hope is knowing that the God of the mountain is also the God of the valley. Hope is another day to enjoy living Coffee. That one got a lot of responses, kind of funny. Young people, children, in our congregation, in my family, many all around the world, Rotary Exchange students, new ideas, we're all in this together, surrounded and uplifted by God's love. That a smile, an act of kindness can change a person's day and possibly their life. Hope is seeing more kindness than evil in my daily life. Yes, bad things are happening, but I'm mostly surrounded by good people doing good things. It brings me hope for a happy future. That there are good people in the world, that we can connect and laugh and grieve together. The Diary of Anne Frank speaks to me because on so many levels, and this famous quote comes to mind all the time, I keep my ideals because in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. Hope is playing with children, music and the arts, being in nature. Greg, I've spent 6 months writing a piece about hope and just wrote about it in my program notes. Hope is challenging the status quo so that tomorrow can be better. Music! Companionship on the journey. I see hope in the children that I play with outdoors. Thanks for asking. Whoop, Karen Wenger. A CT scan that doesn't suck. Seeing spontaneous acts of kindness, witnessing empathy, and playing with younglings. This person said, I specifically remember the hopeful joy I felt when in the NICU I worked at began hiring this wonderful group of new young nurses. So more generally, I say young people who are participating and also involved in the world. Also, E-Town COB gives me hope. What started as an experiment to see how people think about hope ended up inspiring me deeply because of the depth of the sharing. I asked, and people responded in deep and meaningful ways. No Christmas wish lists. They talked about things that really mattered. Transformation of self in God. The faith that God is really moving. Hope in humanity. Action with God. I also found it interesting how many people name children. Is it any wonder that the prophetic voice in Isaiah speaks of a child leading them, or that the light of the world is a newborn baby? God's wisdom may be unexpected, but it is not without a logic of its own. Now, I want to close with this. You may have noticed a response in there that seemed a little odd. Someone who mentioned something about spending their last 6 months writing a piece of music. That was my friend Sean Kirchner. Maybe some of you know him. He's a music director at the Laverne Church of the Brethren, often performs at annual conferences and other Church of the Brethren conferences. He's also a composer. He just wrote a seasonal piece entitled, The Light of Hope Returning. And so after this post, he shared with me his program notes that he is going to be using, and I want to close with an excerpt that he wrote that's part of those program notes. Sean says, the hope we sing of in the light of hope returning is not a hope of airy lightness. It has the powerful, heart-lifting light of a distant star that is actually up close, an unimaginable furnace of fire. It is allied with the basic driving force in the universe that turns the galaxies, forms the planets, and spurs the countless generations of life finds an ever-forward way. This hope is our life force, the fire that burns at our core, the DNA-level birthright, the momentum of God within us. That is Advent hope. I invite you to stand for our closing hymn.